Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Whoa, hey there, J-Man.
Whoa, hey there, Chris. How was your week off?
Yeah, we were off for Linux Fest last Saturday.
Yeah, we went and got our geek on up in Bellingham.
Yeah, we got a ton of videos from the whole thing, too. So if you're a Linux geek or an open source enthusiast, head over to youtube.com/Jupiter Broadcasting, where we posted a ton of those videos.
There's like 20,000.
We have got a massive episode that kind of is like looking towards the future today. Coming up, we've got the new Ask Cryptic that we're going to dig through, and we've picked out a few gems that I think you guys are going to find interesting.
Quite a few, but we'll try to do them quickly.
Yeah. Plus, there's the new Design Enterprise contest winner we're going to talk about. We both have a little commentary on that, which, stay tuned for that. Plus, some quick reviews of the Section 31 uniform. And then
we're probably going to talk about the Breen rerun that came out as well.
That's right.
Yeah,
we did. I got my Breen engine. What's up? So I have a few thoughts on that, and then also towards the end of the episode, we've got a totally new community feedback question for you.
Yep.
That it's probably the one that is going to be right up your alley if you've been following the Design the Next Enterprise story at all.
Yes, definitely.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
All right, J-Man, but let's dig into this latest Ask Cryptic because I think we want to kind of focus on the trend, but there's a few other major things first that we can just kind of get out of the way. Yeah,
because I'm really interested in seeing what the next adversary is that we're going to be having to overcome and stow. I like seeing new bad guys. So just to give you guys some information, we've heard that the Xindi and the Sphere builders, which you might know from Enterprise, are on the short list of future bad guys. Well, we might not see them until like 2012.
Those guys are like some fertile ground for some STO canon exploration there. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that could be fun.
And really, if you think about it, if they do the kind of sphere builder thing where it really F's up in a region of space,
totally,
that actually works really well in an instanced type environment. So
yes, it does.
That could be kind of maybe we'll see some sort of sector space in the future that's been all kind of screwed up, and we'll do like a featured episode series in there or something.
Wow.
That'd be neat.
I didn't even think about all that. That sounds fun.
All right, what else you got on the list?
Borg are getting an overhaul. Both the new STO versions, with the extra bits taken out.
More zombie-esque kind of.
And the next generation version as well.
More like the ones we saw in the tutorial.
Yeah. They're both going to be getting an upgrade and overhaul in several different areas. Now, it's sounding like there's going to be some sort of major Borg feature, either event or episode series.
And it said coming soon, too.
Coming in the near future.
That was Mr. Stahl's
Hopefully, this is going to tie into the final release of Into the Hive. The final of the final of the current set of Special Task Forces.
Right. Huh, that'd be interesting. Now, so that's what's going to be happening with the Borg, and I'm always curious to see where they go with the Borg. And I know specifically from just talking with guys at Cryptic and reading authors' blog posts that when it comes to story involving the Borg, CBS can be particularly cautious. Like I think it goes all the way up to the very top of some of the STO franchise stakeholders when it comes to the Borg.
I'm on board with that. I think the Borg need to be handled carefully.
And in fact, if I remember correctly, I think like William Shatner's book where he comes back to life, I believe like all of the stuff that happened with the Borg in that book had to have sign off from Rick Berman. I'm not positive, but I believe it went all the way up to that level.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. That can be good and bad. It can limit creativity, but it can also protect a certain story. So
it makes canon more canon.
Yeah, it makes it more official.
Yeah.
We also got some information about maybe where the new next series is going to take place.
Yeah, the Series 4, the next featured episode series, sounds like it's going to be taking place in and around Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So for fans of the Deep Space Nine series, which we talked to Murphy on our last episode about how Deep Space Nine inspired his whole series, and we got a lot of positive comments about people just saying, yes, Deep Space Nine was awesome.
Didn't we have a little hint out there that it might also involve the Cardassians?
And or the Tholians are still on the short list of an enemy we're going to see in the very near future. So
I think if you look at almost all of the stuff on our list, there's a theme coming up, and it's sort of the theme for this episode. It's the next big things for STO. I mean, we all know Season 4 is coming up, and we've got ground combat changes, we got duty officer system. Duty. All these things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but there's also just a ton of stuff. I mean, Daniel Stahl must have had his huge subspace crystal ball because he was really reaching for some far out stuff.
I want to say before we get into this actual stuff that's coming eventually down the line, I actually kind of find it refreshing that we're not still dwelling on Season 4 to a certain extent.
What do you mean?
This Ask Cryptic, almost no questions in here, very few about like what's coming in the immediate future.
Yeah,
and I actually see that as a good thing. It makes me feel like Cryptic and the community are both confident about Season 4, that we're ready to hit the ground running.
We're wrapping our brains around what Season 4 is.
Bug-fixed and iterative and just ready to roll it out in a really good way.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's just me being overly hopeful, but it feels like that.
No, I mean, some of these things we've been talking about regarding season 4, we've been talking about them for way longer than previous seasons when new features were rolled out. So I think the community in general, and especially the people who would be engaged in these Ask Cryptics asking the questions, I think we do wrap our brains around season 4.
Yeah.
I think we grok it. We're still kind of curious what all of the specifics are. Absolutely. I mean, I am for sure. But, I think as an overall, it's interesting to see that we're looking so far ahead. You're right, Jamie.
In a way,
maybe that's a good sign.
In a way, to not hear about it in this Ask Cryptic actually makes me more excited to see it coming to Tribble soon. That doesn't make a whole lot of psychological sense, but it does.
Well, it is in the sense that you're not. There's not those concerns and worries that normally would show up on a radar that makes you worry about something coming down the pipe. I can kind of see how you can see that. All right, now with all of that said, a lot of the next following statements were like beyond season 4, like way out there, which to be honest, we're not even all the way halfway through 2011 yet. So I'll save my thoughts when we get to them. But J-Man, let's go.
Well, first of all, I think that you brought this up, and I just want to revoice it. It sounds as though Dan Stahl might even be using the term Season 5 and 2012 interchangeably.
Yeah, just so he didn't sound like a broken record.
Right.
My theory is that Season 5 is in 2012.
Or maybe right before Christmas or something.
Maybe, yeah. I really think that after Season 4 hits the ground, they're going to have a lot of work on their hands because there's probably a lot of things they're going to need touching for the new ground combat stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Then after that, there's going to be this rush to just start cranking out these featured episodes. I mean, he said earlier on the show, like a few weeks ago, that they're planning to do a lot of these featured episodes, and that is just content creation like nothing else.
Absolutely.
So I could see how that would pull them out from getting in the building the new season up and having to feature on these episodes.
Like a major technological revamp of some sort, a major feature upgrade.
But I could see in early 2012, now it's time for season 5. So I think 2012 and season 5 are...
Now, when you first brought this up, when we were talking about it before the show on our live stream, my initial reaction was, no, I don't want to wait that long for a season. But then I started thinking about that. The seasons are major technology system feature upgrades, whereas everything else in between is just content.
Yeah.
And going 6 months with nothing but new content and no new features and systems to worry about, that actually sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah, especially if season 4 is fairly bug-free, or at least in the sense of, as much as possible, so that that's a good sort of new platform to just crank content on top of. You're going to have new ground combat, so there's still going to be, when you bring in new stuff like that in the duty officer system, there's a lot of stuff that people are going to be able to enjoy for a while, along with featured episodes. So I do think I could see them doing that, especially with limited resources in-house.
Yeah.
It just seems like good planning.
Going 6 months with nothing but new content and no new things to learn except just enjoying the game. That sounds great. That sounds great.
Yeah. So I mean, this is all just guessing on our part. But it's kind of with the messaging we're getting.
Okay, so let's get into some of the key features that he's already mentioned might be even coming in 2012 or season 5.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Fleet alliances and wars. Do you have anything to say about this?
I do, J-Man. I'm sorry. I've got to get into this.
I was just going to do bullet points, guys, but he's got to run his mouth.
2012 is too far out for fleet stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I know we just said all the exact opposite, but I think fleets are so important to the health of the community around Stowe.
I can agree with that.
They're like the hub that people can still engage in, and good fleets are really a group of friends. And a group of friends with this game in common, and they're nothing but good positive energy back into the game in most cases. And anything that Cryptic can do to make that fleet experience better. And I've suggested some things before, like maybe they could open up the XMPP server on their Tribble server so that fleets could query who in a fleet is logged in and display stats on their websites. Even if that was just maybe pulled every 15 minutes from the game on their end and put into an RSS feed.
Sure.
Something like that. Or, give us options where fleet mates can link us to stuff in-game. Things that will help fleets grow. I know we've talked about shared territory. All that's big stuff. And I just would love to see some progress towards fleet improvements.
I agree. But on the other hand, and let me just play devil's advocate for a second.
All right.
It would be such a major feature.
Yeah, I know.
That just like we were saying earlier, I think this game would be better served by content than features at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
After season 4.
And because fleets are really about the social interaction and not about the technology of the game, all right, I'll wait.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Continue on, sir.
Sometime in 2012 and or season 5, we're going to finally see the option to change the uniforms of the people that walk around on our ships.
Yeah.
Interior. The question was posed, now that we've seen it in the TOS interiors, is it coming soon? And they said, no. Eventually, yes.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, we know it's in the TOS interior because they're able to just place those NPCs in there.
Right.
Sounds like there's some overall interior tech they're working on, and this will be rolled into that.
Including, there was also a mention of placing specific set pieces within your ship interiors. The question was posed for the Foundry, but the answer came back as part of customizable interiors.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what they were saying before about using Foundry tech to upgrade your ship interiors.
That would make sense. Like if your ship interior was essentially like a Foundry zone. And yeah, maybe that could work. I don't know.
Now, the centerpiece of Season 5 is said to be Endgame and fleet features. So one of those would be the Alliances and Wars system.
Very cool.
Hoping that another one of those is star bases and possibly even territory control.
You know, God, you say that kind of stuff, and I'm starting thinking maybe Season 5 is a roll-up for, it's like a fleet love season.
Right. And would it be so bad to have to wait until January or February of next year to see that?
No, I mean, if they do it in that kind of approach, and they can really, you know, when you do it like that, I think they look at it as more like they're willing to touch deeper, further aspects of the game.
Sure.
Where if it's mid-season, it's more superficial, kind of fixy
like
kind of
UI
stuff.
upgrades and stuff like that.
So if you roll those kind of major back-end changes, then maybe they're willing to go deeper with that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, it's totally worth waiting for.
Okay, and just one more last note, and I know that I'm including this because I know it's going to make you cry. You're such a ship geek. They've confirmed that we probably will not be seeing, there's about a 90% chance we will not see a Constitution refit at a higher tier.
And doesn't even sound like it's just a Cryptic objection. It also sounds like it's coming from CBS,
which basically means the hammer has been thrown.
Yeah,
dropped.
and I know as a Star Trek universe fan that it breaks laws to have a Connie ship as powerful as, say, you know, a sovereign ship. Or
right. Well, how far could you really realistically upgrade that ship? Would it ever be on par with a sovereign?
I agree that it would never, technically, should not be possible. However, a couple of things. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other compromises Cryptic has made in the name of fun to play.
Yes, absolutely. And they have even gone on record before as saying if fun goes up against canon, fun will usually win.
Right. And why not use this as an opportunity to give me something to craft? Maybe I get that ship and I have to earn it the traditional way or however else it works for them. And then I have to go through a building process. So it's like I'm building onto the ship as I use it.
Let me take that a step further. Put it as part of the fleet system. Make it so that a fleet has to get together and have a star base capable of supporting ship crafting on like a shipyard.
Totally brilliant, because your fleet gets together. Now you can do those kinds of things, but you're not introducing anything into the game that the people couldn't have with a regular tier 5 ship.
Right.
So you're not breaking, you're not like weighing the scale of power.
No.
Because if you wouldn't be able to have that stuff unless you're a VA anyways.
Right.
Oh, J-Man.
Plus, let's say you go into a random special task force group and you see somebody joins your team and is flying a Connie. Well, either you laugh at them, or you know that they've got this great fleet of supportive people that have helped them get to the point where they can make that, and they're worth knowing.
And you know you're going to want to put your fleet logo on that thing, and oh, snaps. I think we got a Season 5 request.
I think I just talked myself out of the fact that I don't want to see a Connie refit.
I'd like to hear what you guys think, though, so leave us a comment. What do you think about that?
Also, I've got a link in the show notes to there's kind of a workaround, a half workaround. If you want to fly a Connie at the high end, the squad leading system can apparently be used to help that. So check our show notes. It's a quote from Stahl.
I never thought about it, but 2 VAs could squad up and boost up the ship.
Apparently.
You don't get the slots, but...
I haven't tried it, but apparently that works.
Yeah. All right, now let's move on. Speaking of ships and things like that, the winner of the Design the Enterprise contest was announced in this last week, and it's been met with some praise and some controversy.
Not much vocal praise, to be honest.
No.
And, I'll be honest, I'm not a ship dude, so I haven't paid a whole lot of I haven't put any passion into paying attention to this contest.
Right.
From my point of view, the opinion on it seems almost split down the middle. But the problem is that the people that don't like it are so much more vocal than the people that do or just don't hate it.
Yeah. So keep that in mind later on in the episode when we get to our community feedback question, because we're going to take this and run with it.
People are saying that the Enterprise F, that the F stands for fail.
Yeah. If you look at our chat room, it seems to be the ones that don't like it are more vocal. But the ones that do like it are just not really speaking up, and we'll get into that in our community feedback question.
Well, let's bring up a picture here because I want to see. You're a ship dude. I want to hear your input on this.
I got the winner right here. So here's the winner. He's I don't know.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
Now, one of the number one complaints that we're hearing from everybody, basically, if they have a complaint against it, is the lack of a neck on this ship.
Yeah.
They're calling it Oberthi.
Honestly, the picture I saw here just doesn't really help me visualize. You, on the other hand, found a great...
I was pointing out over at Trek BBS, a guy has done some really rough mock-up renders just to kind of give you a feel for what this actually looks like in a three-dimensional space.
And there's actually angles of it that I kind of like when I see it.
The rear.
Yeah, I do kind of like the rear. I don't like I don't necessarily like the thing connecting the hull to the saucer in the front angle where it's facing directly on.
Well, and to be honest, the E was sandwiched on. They had no neck either.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an evolutionary process of the Enterprise.
You know what? Actually, funny enough, the whole aspect of the neck is part of our community feedback question. So
It is.
we'll jump down to that, and I think we'll go from there. Now, the Section 31 uniforms,
Why?
because they're new.
The only good thing about these, in my opinion, is the texture looks really nice. It looks really like leather.
Yeah.
Which is what it's supposed to look like.
And the pants look a lot like the pants did in the show in Deep Space Nine. I honestly am just...
It's a monochromatic leather jumpsuit. Meh.
Here's what we keep going back to. It's not Cryptic's art. It looks great. The texture's great. They're boring.
They are. There's
And
a
it's-
single color.
And it's not that all Star Trek uniforms are boring. It's that these ones are boring.
Very.
It's like $3 in real money. So as a collectible, it's not that bad.
Folks in the chat room are calling it a trash bag. That it looks like you're wearing a trash bag.
Wow, ouch. I don't know if I agree with that, but I like for me, it was kind of boring. I added a belt that wasn't part of the original look to make it look a little
The one
better.
from Motion Picture, right?
The Wrath of Khan belt, I think it was.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just kind of plain. But we've seen some. Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
I think the only people that are really excited about this are those role players out there that really like the whole concept of Section 31 and want to play up as their character is a part of that clandestine organization.
It was brought up in the chat room during the pre-show that great Foundry fodder.
That's true as well.
Yeah. So when you think of stuff coming into the game is also available in the Foundry, then I'm always on board. Always.
Sure. Yeah.
We've actually got a few more uniform type things. Why don't we talk about those?
Well, we got some sneak peeks. A few friends of ours went into they call them hog files, which are the raw graphic files,
I know.
and pulled
So
out
hardcore
works in progress of the new Jupiter uniforms, which a lot of, obviously, our people have been wondering about because it's Jupiter. Now, the pictures that we're showing are works in progress, but they're also textures wrapped to the wrong meshes. So they don't actually look right on the characters either. And the colors are atrocious.
Right.
So keep all that in mind when you're looking at these.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now, and they're not supposed to be beauty shots.
No,
they're supposed to be works in progress, and they're not ready for us to see yet. But I will say, while I don't like the colors used in these shots, I like the variation of color options I'm going to have. Very TNG with the lines of the shirt and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. Plus, I love the name. So what's up? Anyways, hey, J-Man.
On the subject of works in progress, let's get into our tweet leaks, right?
Tweet leaks.
Epic intro, Chris.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so you know what tweet leaks is. It's just pictures. So let's show you the first one.
It's not leaked at all, publicly put up on Twitter, unlike the last stuff, which is leaked.
Right.
It's funny the stuff that is actually leaked, we didn't call leaked, and the stuff that isn't leaked, it's just more fun.
That's ironic.
All right, J-Man, roll with it.
We got a shot of a possible 2409 Federation Mirror Universe uniform. One of the comments on it actually is funny. It's why does the Mirror Universe have a single uniform when the current 2409 main universe doesn't have a single uniform?
You know their experience before the Terrans gained their independence, before they they were unified as a people.
J-Man. Oh, it really brought them together, right?
Yep. So that's where that uniform is.
That's a good load of BS. Well done with that.
Thank you.
So another shot we got is from some fighter crafts. We have an in-game shot or a render of both the Peregrine and the Todouge, I think it's pronounced.
Hotness.
They look really good.
Yes.
I especially like the Peregrine. I'm wondering if it's going to be taking a shuttle slot. And if so,
I bet
how it fits into the whole scaling of going from a shuttle to a fighter. I'm guessing that the fighters will be like the topmost in shuttles.
Right.
But that's just a guess.
So you're thinking the layout's going to be I bet you that's exactly what it'll be. Yep, good call, J-Man.
Okay.
All right.
We got a shot in there from the finalists from the Design the Next Enterprise. Just kind of cool to look at. It actually came out before the thing was finalized, so it would have been cooler if you saw it several days ago. So go back in time and then look at this.
All you got to do is fly around the sun, but don't worry, there's rings that you just got to fly through.
Some people find that difficult, Chris. I mean, those rings. They're tricky.
Actually, the first time I went through it in my Klingon and I went to high impulse, because, I just don't play my Klingon very often.
And a bird of prey is like, whoa!
Like, whoa, okay, all right. Because, before I was like, I think the first time I went through it, no S, I might have been in my galaxy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but a little bit different experience there.
All right, so the last one we got is a shot of the ground combat reticle in action.
Yeah.
Looks much better than the previous shots that we had gotten.
Well, it's easier to see, too.
I think it might be an actual in-game shot. It didn't come from Stahl.
Yeah.
You know how he likes to do them on his phone.
Yeah, he does.
Lazy.
Hey, I'm just happy to have him.
I'm sorry. I'm not calling Cryptic devs lazy. Don't get on me.
No. But again, I'm just gonna break this down just real quick. The game does have a built-in screenshot feature.
It does,
and the iPhone does accept email.
I would also like to point out additionally that the game Star Trek Online, you might have heard of it, is actually on the internet. So I mean, there's an option there, right?
Probably. All right, now let's move on. I don't know anything about this literary challenge, and I want you to tell me all about it.
Well, this and another link that I'll tell you about in just a minute are just like community things, which I love hearing about, but I don't know all that much about. Now, Wishstone, who is one of our well-known community leaders over on the forums, is hosting what she's calling a literary challenge, where it's asking writers, specifically people that write for the Foundry, to come up with just great pieces of writing. This first one has to do with mementos that your captain holds on to. And they want you to tell a story about the specific memento object that's important to your captain.
I like that. I always liked Picard's like chair cover and stuff like that.
Sure.
So that's pretty cool.
Or like his flute.
Yeah. And Kirk always had a bottle of that Syrian brandy or whatever it was in that really odd-shaped bottle.
Right.
Okay, anything else before we get to the Breen?
One more link in the show notes. Just check it out if you're interested. The site called Tor is doing they're doing a blogging of a rewatch of the Next Generation series, which might be fun, if you're Trek fans, obviously, if you're watching this.
Did you ever see Will Wheaton's stuff that he did over at TV Squad?
Memories of the Future.
Yep, I loved that.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
All right, now the Breen series has been replayed. And I don't know exactly how you replay a video game, but
rerun,
yeah. I know how you replay it because that's what we did today. But it's been spiced up a little bit. They threw in some perks, like some extra. If you complete the whole thing, you get another set.
Well, and if you didn't get it previously during the limited time, you can now get the Breen buff again.
Yep.
Now, I would like to point out that the Breen buff and the emblem rewards are limited time. But there is an additional reward for these added to the Breen series, specifically a set of gear that's decent.
I played through Cold Case and got myself the engine. And
that's the one that has the nice like
ice
chilled ice
coming off of it. It's kind of neat. It's not anything super awesome. It's got decent specs and it's got a good look to it. And it was a fun little reward that I'm going to keep around now for sure. I have it on my Excelsior, but of course it's going to be one of those things that we drop on all the different ships to see how it looks as I jump around.
Yeah, I heard it looks really good on a captain's yacht, to be honest.
Yeah, I bet. So I played through this on the live stream. We usually start around 11 a.m. over at jblive.tv, and at least since they started doing the featured episodes, we've been doing gameplay every morning. So we open up with some STO gameplay and we play with the chat room. And I went through in a group with some people on the live stream through the Cold Case. And I'll tell you what, J-Man, I was skeptical. I was skeptical because A, I could replay this whenever I want, and B, it seems a little cheap.
Yeah.
And so...
well, let me sidebar on that for a second because I didn't play through it. You know why? I felt like it was cheap. First of all, I'm not a big emblem grinder. I don't find all that much necessity for that. So I don't feel the need to do these missions that have extra emblem rewards. Yeah. Secondly, I've already done this content 3 different times on 3 different characters. I don't feel a need to do it again just because it's the cool thing that everybody's doing. I feel like, okay, there's 2 sides to this. Okay. I encourage the fact that this is a featured thing that they're doing because it is, in a way, an event run by Cryptic, and I'm always a proponent of them doing anything to engage their community.
And I wasn't sure how it would play out, but I'll tell you, it seemed like the zones I were in were very busy.
But on the other hand, it's the same old content. They didn't have to do almost anything new except come up with a few special rewards.
I can definitely understand it from your perspective when you've already played through it a few times. I played it the first time. I've only played through it once. Again, it was pretty soon. In fact, it was like the weekend after.
Yeah.
So for me, it was still something kind of new. In fact, I was surprised with how I was still struck by how good looking like the social zones are and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Defera on the ground. It's pretty.
So I it was funny because when we beamed in, I was like, oh yeah, that actually is really nice. So that was something I just didn't expect. And then the other thing I didn't really appreciate was how some of the finer details of the mission I had forgotten. And so that was nice to replay it again. Plus, I played with a group, which was a good group, and they were nice and fast and efficient. So the ground combat moved at a nice pace. So I didn't feel like it took a long time.
Right.
And I don't know, I liked it. I liked the reward. I think that's what finally sold it for me was that new extra reward. Because honestly, dude, the reality is in an MMO, a lot of us just replay content anyways.
Oh, totally.
You're going to do it anyway. So why not get a little something?
Okay, yeah. So I'm on board with that.
You like that?
Yeah.
I guess it just means now I'm probably not going to replay a lot of the other featured until I know what's going to happen with those. But yeah, there's that. It's like, I don't know, there's one thing to consider.
One more link in our show notes. If you're going to rerun Cold Case, which is the one that gets you the engine with the pretty sparklies, I've got a link in the show notes for the solution to the puzzle graphic. We actually discovered on the live stream. We didn't remember how to do it.
That was,
So spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Right there. Links in the show notes. And leave us a comment wherever you're watching this on your thoughts on the whole new Breen set, if you've got it, or any particular aspects. I'll tell you what, guys, right now I'm not inclined to go play the other ones and get the whole set because I like the Aegis shields and engine a lot.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear your thoughts if you guys want to convince me otherwise, or maybe how I could mix and match the both of them up.
In fact, if we get good responses from this, enough that there's like math involved, that might be a future segment.
If I get a lot of people saying the same thing, I'll try the build and let you know how it turned out.
Me too.
All right, J-Man, let's jump into community feedback. And welcome back to Community Feedback. Now, we've got a whole new question for you this week that has been pulled right out of the Stowe community headlines.
Yeah, inspired by all of the hubbub and the feedback that's been coming over the winner of the Design the Next Enterprise, we have decided to kind of give you guys a sounding board to getting some of those opinions heard in a very specific way. So don't just send us all of your rants.
Yeah.
Very specific ones are what we're asking for.
I'll set it up for you guys. So, by the way, if you're not watching this show live over at jblive.tv, you guys, seriously, join us at like 11 a.m. Pacific. We spent over an hour on the live stream really chewing on this question, trying to boil it down to something that you guys can sink your teeth into.
Yep.
And we'd love to have more of you join us so you can get in that input. Okay.
You get so much more show.
It is now, so we started at 11 a.m. It is now 3 p.m. our time.
Yeah.
So, and we're not done. We're obviously not done. So the question is what makes a good enterprise?
That's a very good question, Chris.
And we're doing something a little different. Not only do we want your thoughts, but we're introducing the poll again. It's been a long time, so we want you to go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, go to the STOked 81 show notes, and cast your vote, because we're going to feature the results of that poll in the next community feedback segment.
If you're watching this on YouTube, there should be a link right below us that'll lead you to that page.
Now, here's the thing. The questions are specific, and we know that a lot of times you guys are going to say, well, it's this, and that. So what we want you to do is vote on the one that's core truth to you. Like you're
the most appropriate choice.
The one that's really, if you had to only pick one, and then expand upon your thoughts in an email to us that we can feature on the show.
Yeah, send that email over to STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Yeah, and we'll take that feedback in the next episode. We'll review the poll, and I think we'll probably also take some Skype calls to get your face on a video if you have some thoughts. So we'll do a whole mix-up of the whole thing.
So what do you think, Chris? What is it that makes a good enterprise?
You know, it's really hard for me to answer because as Star Trek fan, I'm confused. And I'll tell you, it's Star Trek's fault. The whole thing is if you look at the different enterprises, there's an obvious design theme thread that is you can draw a line with exclusion of maybe the NX from the Enterprise NCC 1701 all the way to the Enterprise E. You really can't. And that isn't because of canon reasons, though. That's because of production design decisions. Realistically, if you look back at the history of the Enterprise, in a couple of cases, what we got as the Enterprise was actually another ship that just got reassigned. It's not like they make that class of ship just for the Enterprise. The Constitution wasn't the Enterprise class. The Galaxy wasn't the Enterprise class. That's just what got assigned.
Right.
It just happens to be they all kind of look similar. So if you go by canon, a Star Trek Enterprise ship could technically be anything that got the name stamped on it.
Well, yes, to a certain degree, but you have to think about all of the dozens of ships that they've designed for Star Trek. I mean, an Oberth wouldn't be an Enterprise. A Defiant wouldn't be an Enterprise.
No, at least it wouldn't feel like it.
There's even elements of a Voyager ship that would not have been an Enterprise.
I think you could make the argument that an Enterprise ship is more of it has to be a certain requirement is the class of ship. Like you're not going to have the USS Defiant get renamed to the Enterprise because that's a battleship.
Right.
So that leaves me in kind of a quandary. I think looking at it, as I've been thinking about this question, I've looked at the different Enterprise and I've tried to thought what core design elements really feel Enterprise to me. It's funny, and I think maybe I say this because I've seen it the least, and I float on this topic all the time, but I honestly kind of think the Enterprise C brings home a lot of the core design elements that I like in an Enterprise, the Ambassador class.
Yeah.
I like its more traditional majestic saucer, to steal your word from the live stream.
Yeah.
And I like its more submarine Enterprise A lower hull.
Yep.
I'm not huge on the saucer, on the nacelles, but they're not bad. And I love the butt on this thing. I love the rear end, and I love the shuttle bay.
It's got a great aft on that puppy.
Yeah, buddy. So, though, I guess I'm saying maybe it might be the saucer or the hull, but I'm so tough. Don't be like Chris, guys. pick one and then expand in the email. Don't be like Chris.
So, but your core concept is the fact that it has to be taken as a whole.
Yes.
And it's kind of something you have to almost feel.
Right.
To understand what it is.
I guess what I would say is if I was going to vote in this poll myself, the choice I make is the starting spot. What starting design point would I start with when I'm designing the Enterprise? That's how I would answer.
That's kind of what
poll.
I am too, because if you come down to aesthetics, really the number one thing for me is how the nacelles sit on the ship.
Yeah?
I mean, maybe I'm not entirely on base on this, but that's the most prominent part of the Enterprise to me is those wings sticking off the back.
I'll tell you something, J-Man. When the new Star Trek 2009 movie was being teased and we hadn't seen the Enterprise yet, one of the first shots we saw was the construction of the saucer with those big warp nacelles behind it.
Yeah.
Now they were a little over. It seemed like the proportions were a little off in that shot.
They ended up being a little off anyway, but
yeah. But I sort of gave a sigh of relief when I saw that. I'm like,
that's an Enterprise.
That's an Enterprise. Whereas
if they tried to pass off the Kelvin design, with the single nacelle in the back,
it's not an Enterprise.
That's not an Enterprise.
No.
There's just something about
it has the saucer, it has the hull, it even has a neck.
Yeah.
But it's not an Enterprise.
Right.
Interesting. And obviously you guys can tell where we're at and we want to hear your thoughts.
Now, I want to mention that a few of these other choices on the poll include the captain and the crew. There are some people that have been in our chat room that actually say that's what makes the Enterprise. And we actually had a fun conversation earlier about the fact that if that was the truth, then what about during Star Trek 4?
Yeah.
When the crew of the Enterprise is flying around on a bird of prey.
I think would they named that the SS Boundary or something?
HMS Bounty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Does that, if you think the captain and the crew make the ship, does Kirk and McCoy and all those people on that ship, does that make it a Enterprise in spirit? I don't know. Maybe in spirit it makes it the Enterprise.
I have to admit that when they brought that up in the chat room, I was kind of on board with it. And I don't know exactly what it is, but when you watch some of those scenes in Star Trek 4, and you kind of get the feeling that you're on an Enterprise with bad lighting.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's who's
dirtier. Yeah.
It's Bones, it's Spock, it's Kirk, and they're talking to one another. And
it's not just that though. It's also and maybe someone might. I don't think anybody in the chat room reminded me, but I just recently saw some commentary about how it's shooting Enterprise and how LeVar Burton, Geordie LaForge, often directed or frequently directed some episodes in the fourth season, I think. And he said that in Star Trek, they love having the actors be the directors because they've already learned all the little shorthand code words that they have. Like you and I have a ton of, like if I told...
Pineapple.
Yeah, pineapple, or if I told you I was going to go ProRes this clip, you know what I would mean. We have a lot of shorthand, and he says they do too, and they'll do things like they have establishing shots that are like Star Trek shots, and they all know what they are. So they'll say, this is a captain's chair shot, and you bring the camera in like this, and you pan up on the camera. And when you're on a Klingon ship, this is a Klingon commander shot. And what they'll do is if they put a Fed captain on a Klingon ship, like in the case of Kirk,
or didn't Riker sit in the
on that exchange student episode,
right?
They will use the Fed captain shots to give you that same feel of here's your hero shot. Very subtle, works nice, and it does kind of make it feel like it's the flag officer that makes the Enterprise and not necessarily the ship. And plus, if it was the ship that made it the Enterprise, then when Kirk blew it up in Star Trek 3, that would mean there's no more Enterprise.
Right.
So
even though the crew was still there.
I think you could make a valid argument, but we're just going to have to wait and see what the people say.
It's up to you to give us that valid argument. We want to hear everything that you have to say about this. Tell us, vote in the poll, and then tell us why you voted the way you did. And if you're around during the live stream next week, maybe you can even call in and tell us in person.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, before we jump out today, why don't you throw out a couple Foundry picks you had?
Gladly.
These are good ones, right?
I've got one for the Fed and one for the KDF. I'll start with the Klingon version because I admittedly didn't get 100% through this.
Oh, okay.
The Klingon mission is called Damocles' Mirror. And this is a great mission for a couple reasons. One is that the writing is very, very Klingon.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, the responses that, first of all, there's a lot of writing. So again, this is another reader-heavy one. But the responses that you give to your crew when they recommend things and stuff is just like,
great.
I'm a warrior commander. You better respect me.
Yeah, we don't play the PR game here.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's great Klingon writing, and the storyline is really just, it's fresh.
Cool.
There's good combat, a good balance between combat and actually solving issues.
I'm really pleased to see some Klingon content coming out of the Foundry.
The only objection I have to this mission is a Foundry limitation. It's a time travel-y thing where you go back to the TOS series.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
It was fine, except the interior was still modern because there's no TOS interiors available on the Foundry yet. I'm sure that in the future, when those become available, this author will probably upgrade his mission to that.
Yeah, and I think you'll see an explosion of time travel episodes too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And what else? Anything for the feds?
Yeah, the Fed mission, I got to be honest, guys, I would give this mission 7 or 8 out of 5. This is the best Foundry mission I've ever played, and you owe it to yourself. It's called The Spirits of Ramak Nor. This is it's expertly crafted.
Really?
This author knows the Foundry inside and out, has been able to execute some just astounding things that I want to copy and put into my next mission.
Oh, yeah.
Like things like zoning without zoning. By using triggers and environment effects that change as you're going.
Okay.
And just the writing is incredible. The only objection I have is that at the end of the mission, you end up saving Bajorans and...
What a waste of time.
But the rest of the mission is so good that it still warrants that high star rating.
Wow. What's that called again?
The Spirits of Ramak Nor.
I'm definitely playing that one then.
You owe it to yourself.
That's your favorite one so far?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. The bar has been raised, ladies and gentlemen. All right, everyone. Well, that wraps up this whole episode of Stoked. Like we said, send in your thoughts, stoked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And also check out the Facebook page over at facebook.com/jupiterbroadcasting. That's where we post when the episode comes out, when we're live, stuff like that. Any other business, J-Man?
No, let's get out of here.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com or join us live on Saturday, and have a great Stow week. Hope the treble.
Did you hit it right?
Hope the treble. Good.